Sometimes the clearest sign that you're drifting away from God isn't that you've stopped praying. It's that you've stopped expecting anything when you pray. You keep saying the same words, but deep inside, you've already convinced your heart that nothing will ever change. And that's one of the quietest defeats a person can experience. Because the enemy knows that someone who has lost hope will eventually stop fighting on their own. But God is still the same, even when your faith is going through its darkest season. Maybe today you don't need to learn a new prayer. Maybe you simply need to believe again that God still hears the one you already know. 2. The day you stopped telling people about your dreams, something changed inside you. It wasn't because your dreams disappeared. It was because you got tired of hearing they were impossible. From that moment on, you learned to settle for less, to stop expecting too much, and to protect yourself from another disappointment. But God never placed a purpose inside your life just to let it be buried under the fear of other people's opinions. The question is no longer whether you can achieve it. The real question is how much longer you'll let fear make your decisions. 3. There is a habit that's stealing your peace every single day, yet it feels completely normal. Comparing chapter 1 of your life to someone else's chapter 20. You see the results, but never the process. You see the victories, but never the tears. You see the fruit, but never the roots. And while you're watching someone else's story, you stop taking care of the one God is writing with you. Maybe the problem was never that you're moving too slowly. Maybe you've just been looking sideways for too long. But it's amazing how one negative comment can stay in your mind for years, while 100 encouraging words disappear in just a few minutes. That's what an unhealed wound does. It filters out everything good and magnifies everything bad. But God has never defined your worth by the opinion of someone who only knows a small part of your story. He sees what no one else has ever seen. And that changes everything about the way you should begin to see yourself. Pew, it wasn't a lack of strength that stopped you. It was believing you had to have everything figured out before you could begin. You kept waiting until you felt ready, confident, and fearless. But almost no one in the Bible started that way. Moses doubted. Jeremiah believed he wasn't enough. Peter failed more than once. God has never called perfect people. He calls willing hearts. Maybe you've spent so much time waiting for the perfect moment that you didn't realize the right moment had already come. There are days when the greatest act of faith isn't preaching, singing, or doing something extraordinary. It's simply getting up one more time when no one knows how exhausted you really are. Some battles leave no scars on the body, but they leave deep wounds in the heart. God knows the weariness you hide behind your smile. And even if you can't see the reward for keeping on today, not a single tear you've cried before Him has ever been wasted. 7. It's so easy to think God is taking too long, until you look back and realize that many of the things you once wanted would have destroyed the person you were at that time. It wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Because receiving something before the right time can become a loss instead of a blessing. Maybe one day you'll understand that God's love is also revealed through the things He chose to delay. 8. Some decisions seem insignificant until a year has passed. 10 fewer minutes on your phone, 10 more minutes in prayer, 1 chapter of the Bible, 1 new habit, 1 different thought. Most lives aren't changed by one spectacular day. They are changed by small decisions repeated when no one is watching. And that's often where God is working the most, in the places where almost everyone thinks nothing is happening. No, the thing that wears out the heart the most isn't always suffering. Sometimes it's pretending for too long that it doesn't hurt anymore. There comes a point where you become so used to hiding your pain that you forget how to open your heart, even before God. But He never comes near to shame you. He comes near to heal what you've been trying to fix on your own for far too long. And maybe that's the conversation you've been avoiding for months. So, a few years from now, you'll remember this season in a completely different way. Today you call it confusion. Tomorrow you may call it the moment God changed the direction of your life. Because the most important chapters almost never feel important while we're living them. They only make sense when we look back. The real question isn't when this season will end. It's who you're becoming while you walk through it.
The strangest thing about a weary soul is that no one notices it. You still show up for work, reply to messages, smile when you need to, and even make other people laugh. But when the day is over and you're finally alone with your thoughts, that feeling returns, that something inside you isn't as strong as it used to be. It's not always a lack of rest. Sometimes it's the result of spending too long, trying to carry everything by yourself without stopping to seek God. There are burdens that discipline can never remove, burdens that only faith can place where they belong. Maybe you don't need to become stronger. Maybe you just need to stop carrying everything alone. 2. Some decisions seem small when you make them, but years later they become the moments that shaped your entire life. A conversation you avoided, a forgiveness you never offered, an opportunity you let pass because you believed you weren't good enough. Fear rarely shouts. Most of the time it whispers, and it sounds completely reasonable. God, on the other hand, often asks you to move forward before you have all the answers. Maybe the difference between the life you're living and the life you're dreaming of isn't one great miracle, but one decision you've postponed for far too long. 3. It's amazing how easily you remember your mistakes, yet how difficult it is to remember everything God has already done for you. One disappointment can fill your mind for months, while hundreds of moments of grace quietly fade away. When your heart focuses only on what's missing, it eventually starts believing that God has stopped working. But your memory also needs to be trained. Sometimes faith doesn't begin with a new answer. It begins by remembering that God has already been faithful, and his character doesn't change just because your season has changed. 4. Maybe you've spent so much time trying not to disappoint others that you've ended up disappointing yourself. You said yes when your heart wanted to say no. You stayed silent when you should have spoken. You hid the gifts God placed inside you because you were afraid of being judged. Little by little, you built a life where everyone else felt comfortable, except you. And that slowly wears down your soul, because purpose can never grow where fear is allowed to make every decision. 5. Many people believe they'll find peace once their problems disappear. But the peace God offers has never depended on a perfect life. If it did, no one in the Bible would have ever experienced true peace. Real peace begins when you discover that God is still worthy of your trust. Even on the days you don't understand what he's doing, maybe the miracle you need today isn't for your circumstances to change. Maybe it's for your perspective to change. No one wakes up one morning and says, "Today I'm going to walk away from God." It happens differently. It starts when you postpone one prayer, when you replace quiet moments with endless distractions, when you fill every minute of your day so you never have to face what's really happening inside your heart. Distance from God is rarely created by one big decision. It's built through countless small moments of neglect. The good news is that coming back can also begin with one small step. 7. There's a battle that almost everyone hides. Feeling like you're never enough, even when you're doing your best. You reach one goal and immediately you think it wasn't enough. You receive a blessing and you're already afraid of losing it. That inner dialogue slowly steals the joy of the present. God never called you to live trapped between pride and guilt. He calls you to walk in humility and confidence, knowing that your worth is not determined by the outcome of a single day. 8. Think about how many times you've asked God for direction while keeping the very door you're afraid of tightly closed. We all want clarity, but very few of us talk about obedience. Some answers only appear after we take the first step. Not because God is hiding them from you, but because some things can only be understood while you're walking by faith. Maybe you've spent months waiting for another sign, when the next move has been in your hands all along. 9. Some wounds stop hurting, yet they continue changing the way you see people. After betrayal, trusting again feels impossible. After failure, trying again feels terrifying. After loss, hoping again feels dangerous. Without realizing it, you become so focused on protecting yourself that you also close the door to the good things God still wants to bring into your life. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means refusing to let your past keep making your future decisions. 10. One day you'll look back on this season with completely different eyes. Not because you'll forget the pain, but because you'll finally understand everything it was producing within you. You'll realize that the patience you're struggling to build today, the faith that feels so small right now, and the difficult decisions you're making were all part of a transformation, far greater than you could see. God doesn't always change the road immediately, but he always has the power to change the person walking it. And many times, that changes everything.